Hello, 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 folks. Welcome to Halloween. I am one of your three hosts. I'm here today with Roseanne Hansen and Avea Moore. We're really, really delighted that you are here with us today, and thank you so much for being here. But do remember, this is a two-part workshop on owls, and so there will be aspects of Aloysius that we aren't going to be able, which we're not going to be doing today, but we will be getting to in subsequent classes. Today we're going to be playing with the owl face. Give people a little bit more time to join us. While they're doing that, I want everybody to run around and find a pad of paper and pencil in your home. If you like doing things with watercolor, I also will be demonstrating a little bit perhaps with watercolor, but the focus of what we're going to be doing is just with pencil and paper. So get yourself a pencil and paper now, and it really makes a huge difference to live while we're going, kind of be working along this with me. And instead of like I'm going to watch and I'm going to remember it and I'm going to be able to do it all later. If you kind of go as we go, it will really help you be able to retain this information and be able to hang on to it. So I just thought of something would be a really fun visual aid for this. And while you're getting your pencil and paper, I'm going to run into the kitchen and come back with an apple and a knife, and you'll see why in a moment. But go get the supplies. All right? See you soon. Look at this beautiful owl head. We'll be playing with that in a moment. I really like using physical models often to help me think about shapes. And what we're going to be doing is we'll be looking at it at an owl head face on, and we're also going to be kind of turning it to the side instead of thinking about three-quarter view. So today's going to be kind of a focus on the head of the owl because they're just so cool, and try to get our owl drawings to feel like they're looking back at us. That's our goal today. So this workshop is brought to you by the Wild Wonder Foundation. The Wild Wonder Foundation is our amazing new nonprofit organization to help spread resources on nature journaling, using science and art to connect us more deeply with the natural world. And this workshop is about one of our projects. So we have fairly soon, in February, a group of nature journalers are going to go to Tanzania together, and we're going to be exploring around, watching all sorts of critters. And while we're there, we are going to be going to the Amani Children's Center, which is an orphanage in Tanzania. And we're going to be spending a day teaching the youth there how to do nature journaling, and we're going to gear them up with their own journals and supplies and do workshops with them in small groups about how to draw African megafauna, all the cool critters. And then the next day we're going to show up with buses, and we're going to drive with the kids into their own national park. And the kids from the center haven't been there. And so we're going to bring them to Tarangire Park, where there are baobab trees and like all these elephants running around. It'll be really, really fun. And we're going to be journaling together. Right now, all those kids have been watching Nature Journal Connection videos and starting to gear up on their own nature journaling practice even before we get there. And we'll also be looking at what we can do to kind of continue these kids' processes of doing this. So this event today is a fundraiser to help us get supplies for the kids, the buses, the lunches, the waters, the admission into the park, um, all of those resources for those youth at the center who we're going to be working with. And so I'm going to, let me do a little screen share here and just change a couple of things on my screen here. The the children's center which we're working with, they're currently changing their server, so there's a few problems with their website right now. So a bunch of the links are broken, but that will be up very, very soon. This is we're trying to raise, Roseanne, it's about $8,000. Is that right?
That's right, Jack. Yes, and yeah, we're a little more than halfway there.
That's right. So we're already halfway there. And so what we're encouraging folks to do today is to see if you can help push us to or over our goal. We'd like, so again, this is for supplies for the kids. We're going to be bringing over 40 kids into the park, as well as a few of their staff. And it's going to be really beautiful. So we're dropping into the chat a link to be, if you'd like to donate to this project, you can find that in the chat. It's going to be beautiful. And we would love your help and participation in making this happen. And thank you so much. So today, I want to talk about drawing owls. And owls are just such cool, magnificent, stately birds. I love drawing them. And as we kind of get close to Halloween, we start thinking about, maybe drawing things as representative of the season, and owls are even more fun to draw than pumpkins. So let's play with that. What I want to do today is to kind of work on the owl looking straight at you. And we're going to simplify that. We're going to look at a bunch of different owl species and see what are kind of some gross similarities in the way they're constructed. And as I see it, there's two big kind of categories of kind of how owl faces look. And so if you know these, then you can look at the owl face and it helps you kind of simplify it in your head. And then we can get that on the paper. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our owl and we're going to turn it to a 3/4 view. So you're seeing more of one side of its head, because that's what they do most of the time. They'll be looking at you sometimes. So something that's fun about owls is they can't roll their eyes. They have these huge eyes. If I were an owl, my eyes would be inside my head the size of grapefruit. You wouldn't see the whole grapefruit, but you just see these two little holes here on the surface, but behind it would swell to this giant grapefruit, 2 grapefruit in my head. And so because their eyes are so big, they can't do this. Well, I'm doing something that owls can't. And so their eyes are fixed straight ahead. And so when they're kind of checking you out, if you're checking them out, they'll very often they will check you out. And so they'll look straight at you. So this is that straight on view. I'll show you a lot. But then they start kind of looking around at other things. The minute something else catches their attention, they're looking off in other directions, and we want to be able to get those views. So this is only 1 degree of the sort of 360 degrees that you can see owls. So we're going to get this, and then we're going to deal with all of that business and how we do that. And that really makes our owl drawings a lot more interesting, a lot more lively, and a lot more fun. I really encourage people with animal faces when we're doing these. People will tend to do profile and straight ahead. And that gives you, again, of the 360 degrees that the critter could possibly be looking, 3 of those degrees. So if you get comfortable with these 3/4 view drawings, it allows you just to make any kind of critter that you're drawing um, it makes it a lot easier. So just let's get in the habit of thinking like, oh, that's kind of a cool head shape. Now, how do I do 3/4 view on that? It's going to be cool. All right, let's let's start by thinking about the owl faces and what are some generalizations that we can make about these owl faces. Let's see here. Right, so here, nope, here, there. I have a whole bunch of really cute owl faces. And what I like to do when I'm trying to figure out how do I draw owls, what I do is I look at a whole bunch of faces and I say to myself, what are similarities and differences between these? Is there any way that I can kind of generalize these? So let's take a look at these. And I want you to, if you are doing this with other people, it's going to be an advantage, because what I want you to do is with the people at home, we're going to be talking out loud to each other about what are sort of general similarities that I see in these. And can I, which one is the most different? Which is the most similar? What are the general similarities? Which ones are like each other? And how does that go? So here's the way I kind of came up with thinking about this. In my head, I divide these into two groups. There are the I faces and the X faces. So the I faces and the X faces. Let's take a look at them. And the I faces are ones where there is a straight line down the middle of the bird's head. These owls have these giant facial discs that concentrate sound. So you see those big kind of ruffs around the eyes. That's a big part of something that makes something look owly. But for some of them, the eye face ones, it's like you have a half circle and a half circle, and they meet in the middle. All right, that's my letter I. So take a look at the barn owl over here on the left. You see that little straight line down through the middle of the head? So I've got a half circle on one side, I've got a half circle on the other, and they meet in a straight line down the middle. All right. So here's what we've got. I'm now looking at these owl faces. On the left-hand side, there's a barn owl, and that little barn owl has a face with a line straight down the middle of it. This little cute owl here, this little owl, has a line straight down the middle of its face. And so these two have a face that is going on that is, two of these things are not like the others. What the others tend to have is what I call an X face. So the X face is that they have a big kind of forehead V that comes down, kind of an owl widow's peak. And then on the bottom of their face, they've got these bristles that fluff out down here. And the feathers around the ears get stuck in on either side of that. So I'm hoping that this makes it a little bit better for people who are just seeing one screen. Let's take a look at the little great horned owl over here. There's a big triangle of a forehead. Notice you don't see that up here on this guy. Big triangle of a forehead. A big triangle down below of scruffy feathers, bristly feathers around the beak. And then there is a wedge of a wedge of a facial disc on either side. Let's take a look at the eagle owl over here. big forehead. Down below that, these white feathers make kind of a triangle below that. This is why I'm calling it the X face. There's an X pattern across the face of the bird. And on either side of that, these wedges fit in. Now, that forehead can be different sizes. Notice over here on this, on the right-hand side, there is a long-eared owl, and it has a much narrower V, right? A much narrower forehead zone, but still we have this kind of X face pattern. And you'll see that a number of these birds even have white feathers on the edge of the X, which makes a letter X. All right, we're seeing these little letter X's. See that? A backwards parentheses on either side of that face. So the way I would go about kind of constructing these heads would be different for ones with this head style that is where you've got these two discs that meet in the middle, and ones where you've got the X face. So what I want to do is to take some of these X face ones, and we're first going to just sketch in loosely how we'd kind of go about blocking that in. And so we'll take a look at these. You know, there's a hawk owl up in the left, very broad, even blunt-bottomed forehead wedge. And burrowing owl on the left, not as deep, but still you get that X effect. I like to think of this as sort of this forehead zone kind of scooping down into it. Now, here are the two owls that kind of don't fit into this as well are the long-eared owl and the short-eared owl. They tend to have very kind of small, like you can imagine if it's a continuum from X to I, these ones would be somewhere in the middle. So those discs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, almost meeting in the middle, making that wedge that you have on your forehead really kind of small, not a big broad thing. But realizing that the amount of forehead that you show is going to change in species, then when we look at the owl, we can go like, hey, let's look there. There's a critical piece of information that's going to make this owl head look like this species. Okay? So let's get a cooperative owl here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we might go about drawing and blocking in this owl head. This is a great horned owl. This is a great horned owl who's hanging out with us today. Beautiful, beautiful owl. And let me see here. What do I want to? I want to our apple will come into play when we get to our three-quarter views. So we're going to set the apple aside. And let's block in what we see here on this bird. So I like to, when I'm starting to draw any subject, I like to in my head, simplify it to an easy form that's easy for me to describe. So for owl heads, I'm often using a circle. I'm going to give this thing kind of a circle face. And now I'm going to kind of take that circle and give it, sort of puff it out on the sides here. And that is there's my little owl head that I'm going to be playing with here. Now, take your finger on the screen and hold it up at the level of those eyes. Are those eyes in the middle of the head of the circle here, or are they lower? Is there more space above the eyes or more space below the eyes? As I look at it, I'm seeing this is the middle of the eyes. I'm seeing I can travel a lot further up to the top than I can till I get to the bottom here. So on this little owl face here, I am going to draw an eye line that is lower than the middle of the circle. So a little bit, giving me a little bit more forehead than the bottom. And because this is looking straight towards me, I can also draw a vertical line here right down through the center of the face. And this line helps me kind of keep the symmetry of this. My eyes are going to be on this line. And notice that what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the owl's eyes actually as a unit of measurement. Hold on a moment.
This eye is one eye length. This eye over here is another eye length. And look at this. How much space is there between the two? It's approximately an eye length. So, and then how about out here? Well, I could throw in another eye here. I could throw in another eye here. So a little bit more than another eye length out there. But do you see how I can use these eyes so that I don't get a head of an owl with little eyes out here, or I don't get a head of an owl with eyes that are too close together. So I'm thinking of these owl eyes as my unit of measurement. So if I were to roughly break this face into fifths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's going to help me place the eyes along this and make sure that my eyes are proportionately large enough for this birdie. So now I'm going to say, like, if I have an eye that is approximately this big, what I'm doing is I'm just using this sort of the eye unit of measurement along this line. And you see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes spread across the page there. And that means that I'm going to have one eye that is roughly in here. I'm drawing circles. Another eye that is roughly in here. And I'm drawing these in lightly and loosely so that I can then later draw over these with a pencil. And this will kind of help kind of place my different elements. But you see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes going across there. So now what I'm going to do is put in the forehead. So I'm going to just draw a little line down here towards the bottom of the eyes and going up here on the sides, and there's a big V forehead. What about on the bottom of it? Here's the bottom of my X here. There's bristles around the beak. The bristles around the beak this way. So there's my big X face. And the beak itself is going to be right in the middle of that. And so I have I'm drawing a little sort of narrow Y shape up in there. This whole area in here to the left and to the right is all going to be filled with bristles. And now I want to think a little bit more about these wonderful facial discs. How am I going to put those in? Well, to help me place that, I'm going to first spend a little bit more time with the eye. When owls are looking really sort of startled and alert. They'll have their eye wide open. And this white section, this little poofy that we see in here, you're not going to see that at all. You're not going to see that part. It will all be just a big round circle with a pupil in the middle of the eye. But as they start to close their eye, the upper lid comes down and obscures that. So on this, when I drew in that circle for the eye, sometimes you'll see an owl and its pupil will be boom right there in the middle of the eye. But as that eye closes, that upper lid is going to come down and start to obscure that. So actually putting in a circle for your eye, whether the eye is open or closed, is really useful, because you either get the whole open eye or you'll get the portion that is white and the portion of the iris that you can see below that. So that's why I've got these circles here. And I'm going to put in, sort of think of where the pupils are going to be in those. So I'm going to have a pupil in here. I'm going to have a pupil in here. And I'm now going to draw the eyelid across that. Higher with this sort of on the left-hand side here, it's going to be higher on the left-hand side and then slope down towards the center. And then the upper part of that is going to be white. Below the eye is sort of, it kind of looks like it's been a little bit sleepy, right? Kind of this almost eye bag look down here below that. And that's what that is a little disc of, a sort of ring of feathers that are arcing out like this from around there. And I'm going to sort of note that that facial disc sort of comes off flat above the eye, and then it arcs down. And again, how far out? It is a little bit less than an eye length. So you see, I'm using, once I've got features like these eyes in place, I can then use them to start to block my way around the face. Out here, I've got a little arc of these outer brown feathers in here. And what about the horns? So as many bird watchers know, owls don't have horns. Those are feathers. Those are long feathers that come up from the edge of the, sort of where the top of this facial disc meets the top of the X. So I'm going to poof out my X here a little bit. And that feather is going to be going in this zone here. It's going to be going in this zone over here. So and depending on how grumpy the owl is looking at any one time, or how agitated it is, the horns will either be raised if it is feeling aggressive, or smoothed down if it's feeling more meek and frightened. So they're a very expressive part of your owl. Let's see. Looking up here, I've got much more top of the head here than that photograph does, so I'm going to lower my head here. On the bottom of this facial disc, or not the facial disc, the little whiskers around the big beak here, kind of come down and meet into that. And then there's an area of feathers on the bottom of the head that will just arc in here underneath this beak. In here and in here. So this has given me I've sort of step by step kind of built up a, let's see if I can get a little bit closer to my friend here. There. Now, because I'm so close, you're gonna have to watch me. If I start drawing off the side of the screen, you've got to call me back in. But I'll try to keep my little owl friend here centered on our screen.
No worries.
But what I want to do is, before I start drawing in this owl with more gusto, I want to just take a look over it and see, are there any things that I can change? Any places that I've put in landmarks? There's a very big tendency that we have to, once we get something blocked in, now I just want to get in here and start drawing eyes and details. But before I do that, just pause a little bit and see if there are other, if there are any landmarks or details that I have put in the wrong place. I already see one. On my owl here, there's this little scoop up here. Touches the edge of the top of the eye, but on that photograph it looks like we're actually going to be curving up here, so more like that. So I'm going to take this and push it out here. And does that then change where these are coming in? Not really, no. So I just kind of scoop these out, and that kind of gives this the sort of more of an Angry Birds expression. I like that. Let's see about the bottom of this. Okay, I think making that one little change, I now feel a lot better about the proportions and on this owl face. But there'll be different kinds of marks for different people. Whatever yours are, then it's very helpful to it's helpful to, once you get your bird blocked in, pause. And before you draw your detail, don't assume that you put everything in the right place. Just kind of go around and look, like, is there enough space here? No, I want to maybe push that out a little bit here. What about enough space here? Yeah, that's looking better, right? You know, whatever it is, either make changes or don't make changes, but be sure to give yourself some time to look for what you might want to change. I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to look at the shape of the eyes a little bit. They seem to have more of a straight side on the, it's more of a straight down on the outer side, and then curve up. We'll be coming back to this bird a little bit later. But what I want to do is just use this same approach on a different bird face, and we will then we'll see how can we use these same ideas on a different bird face, a little boreal owl here. So there's a cute little owl face looking straight at me. All right. I'm going to do the same thing. This time the owl's head is tilted a little bit. So I'm going to draw a little circle, but there is a tilt to its axis. And again, the midline of it is a little bit lower, closer towards the bottom than the top. Is that too much of a tilt? All right, where are the eyes on this? Okay, now the eyes here, look at this. Smaller eyes proportionate to that head. This is going to give this owl a really different look. And so here, the distance between those eyes, right, if this is the distance between the eyes, the eye itself is a little bit shorter than that. And then on the outside of that, there's about 2 eyes. Let's draw directly on top of that and see. If I annotate, and if this is an eye length, here's an eye length. This is an eye length. So it is almost 2, it's maybe 2.5 eyes between those. And then how many eyes to the outside? There's another eye, there's another eye. That gets us out to the edge of the facial disc, then another eye to the edge. Wow, eye. All right, so here's 1 eye width. So this is a place where if I stop and I slow down and I measure these things and look at them, it is going to really pay off. It's going to really pay off. I'm hoping that I still have this one working over here. That was where things went off the rails the last time. So if this is my eye length here, if I have an eye here, I'm going to again put in a circle. I'm going to put in a circle. I have a little bit wider between those, so more than an eye, about an eye and a half between those 2 eyes. And then going on the outside, it's gonna, this one's head is gonna have to actually go all the way out to there. All the way out to there. So those eyes are making my head have to be a lot wider. Compare that with this one. That's going to really give this birdie a different look, a different feeling. And what about its little V, its widow's peak? It's starting between the eyes. It's coming up steeply. And what about below the eyes? Oh, this is interesting. It's coming down straighter. And then my beak is in the middle of those. So I'm using the same general architecture, but I'm getting a very different shape because I'm not expecting all these things to be the same and not just kind of, but I have kind of a game plan of how I'm going to approach it. All right. So here is my little V between those eyes, and off on the bottom, it's coming off straight, and then I'm going to arch from a point beyond where the eye is, curve that down and around. On this side, curve it down and around. Now, how far out do I want this to be? Maybe I'll put it in here. Oh, all right. So this is, I now kind of just want to look at, my brain wanted, remember when I measured it, I wanted it out here. And then when I was eyeballing it, I was thinking, no, it has to be closer. But I think my measurement, that was better. And why is that? That was because there's this sort of big dark area that is out here, sort of this dark area on the outside of this. And out here, a big kind of dark area. And then the head will be beyond that. Let's give this a very, not a rounded head. Let's give this a real flat top up here. Cut in angles over here. And then maybe round it around the edges. Now, right now, my little sketch is looking very golly, sort of surprised because I got these big wide eyes. But let's carve that eyelid across it. Remember what we did before? We had that eyelid that started higher and then went down. We're seeing the same thing here. So I'm going to put in a pupil here, and I'm going to put in a pupil here. That's my surprised boreal owl. And then I'm going to start higher and come down. I'm going to start higher and I'm going to come down. And that means that the top part of that is this sort of eye fluff. One last thing that I think might be useful on this owl is I'm going to put in just a few little sculpting lines because I'm seeing the little feathers up on its forehead sort of have a rounded feel to them. So I'm just going to kind of put in a few little lines like this just to remind me to kind of round these little lines of feathers out. They're going to be curving around this space. That helps me continue to think of this as a rounded form. And we'll come back, we'll take some of these drawings and we'll add more detail to them at the end. But I think that getting the geometry of these faces that's our big goal for today. If we take a look at owls that have the eye face. All right, so here are owls with eye faces. There is that straight line down the middle. That straight line down the middle. And that is, it's a really different look. It's a really, really different feeling that we get in these birds. So if we kind of take a barn owl here and we do the same thing, I have a circle head and its head is at a slight tilt. And let's look at where the eyes are in this circle. Well, remember we're talking about the full circle of the head. There's that heart shape. That's not the edge of the head. So from the edge of the head to the eyes, they're above halfway. So maybe my halfway point of my circle is here. So I'm going to put a little line above halfway. And let's also look at their size again. These eyes are more than an eye width apart. So I'm going to put in a circle here. I'm going to put in a circle over here. This is going to be an important one to draw if you ever want to draw a Wild Wonder logo. And the barn owls, an interesting group of owls. They're not related to the other owls, the typical owls, which we call typical owls. They have a little beak down below, and then you'll see a very prominent line coming down from the inside of the eyes. And as it gets close here, it's going to tuck in towards that beak. And then this heart-shaped disc face. So let's take a look at how much space, how high above these eyes do I want my heart to be, the top of my heart. So I want much more room down here. I'm guessing roughly about in there. I'm going to make that a little bit of a V in here, but really use that top there. How far out away from here is my disc? About an eye length. And then it's going to come down below, a little bit more peaked down below here. Now I'm going to wrap the rest of this bird's head around that. And because the body's on the right and then the head is turned towards us, on this side here, we don't have very much body. Or very much head. But we've got a lot more head on this side. So this side here is not the same width as what we're seeing out here. You see how constructing this is really different than what I get with one of these birds that is an X face. Ooh.
Hey, Jack, what species, will you name the species again here on these?
Sure. So we started with a great horned owl, and then we went to a boreal owl, and then we jumped over to a barn owl. And this new one who's just shown on the screen here, this is a great gray owl. Great gray owl. And you see it also has another big eye face. So for drawing this, I'm going to start with a circle.
Oh, Jack, if you could please move your drawing.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect.
It takes a village to keep me on track here. Thank you so much. And this one head is fairly vertical. And let's think about, where do I want to place those eyes? So I'm sitting here kind of holding my finger up, kind of looking at those eyes. Those are really pretty much right there in the middle of that, it seems to me. And let's use the eye spacing. Eye spacing. So are they one eye width apart? Are they there? These ones, again, a little bit more than one eye width apart. So if that is my a little bit more than one eye width apart, my eyes are going to be in here. And how many eyes on the outside of that? Just kind of eyeball it. I'm guessing about 2 eyes out, and we get to the edge of our disc. 1 eye out, 2 eye out. Edge of my disc will be about there. 2 eyes out. Edge of my disc will be about there. So these little measurements make a really big difference in getting the proportions of these owls. So look at from the middle of the eye here to the middle of the eye here. I'm visualizing a little triangle. Is from eyeball to tip of the beak, is it more this? Is it from eyeball to tip of the beak? Is it more like that? Oops, those are off the screen. All right. So on this, from eyeball to tip of the beak, I'm feeling it's closer to this shape than that one. So I'm putting my little beak tip down here. And then what patterns are we seeing around this? We're seeing kind of a neat little bit of a kind of angle above the eyes, and then coming down straighter here into the face. Now you're thinking, I'm not seeing much of these owl beaks, right? I'm used to seeing, I'm just sort of seeing these little slices. That's right. So you're seeing the beak itself has a big old kind of hawk beak shape, but the sides of that beak are all covered up with feathers. So you are just seeing this little kind of the front of its sliver that sticks out. There is underneath this one's head, or under the beak, there's a little dark triangle. And then on either side of that, we have a little white spot that flares out and a white spot that flares out. At the top here, I'm going to put in a small little widow's peak. Yeah, that's even too big. And then we're going to come out flat and then arc around, hitting those sides. Down here on the bottom, look at this little angle here. We're kind of curving in, and then there's a point in here where so I'm going to try to kind of come up with a little line and up to there. I'm going to come up with a little line, up with a little line, and then connect down into that. That just gives me this sort of big head look. Big head look. Now this one has its head slightly turned. And the result of that is kind of interesting. This is maybe beginning to transition us into turning that head. Notice this little subtle thing, that the distance, that this space here between the eye and the center line is bigger on this side than this side. Huh. That's because the head is turned slightly. As I started to draw, I didn't notice that. I was drawing mine much more symmetrically, but actually this one is turned in. I'm going to actually draw this one more symmetrically, just as in the straight view, but I do want to be aware that if I were trying to copy the photograph, so the same eye shape, so for these eye shapes, it's doing this sort of angry mark on the top, then the outside edge comes down pretty far, and then we're zooping over to get that.
Hey, Jack, it's Roseanne. We are a little bit about halfway through 1237, and we have a question regarding this particular species, which might be fun to answer while you're finishing those details. Jacqueline noted that satellite-shaped face, and can you talk about how that helps an owl like that hear better and navigate?
Oh, that's a really cool question. You're absolutely right. So Jacqueline pointed that out.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, thank you for a great observation. It reminds me of a satellite dish because it serves exactly that same function. The owl's ears are located back here under the feathers. They're little holes in the side of the head. And the way a curved dish like this works is that sound that is coming in here at all sorts of different angles.
Oh, Jack, would you be able to switch that over a little? Sorry, the other way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the way a radar dish works is that you've got the big parabola with a little receiver here. So that's out on a little stick. And then maybe your television signal comes in, hits this curved surface, and depending on the amount of curve in the surface, you can change where that is going to bounce to. And they all bounce to that little receiver there. So things that come in here, everything bounces there, and that's where you have your receiver. So that gives you a big surface, that curved surface collects sound. The sound that comes into this area here and this area here, it's angled to focus sound to these ear spots on either side. And the feathers themselves have a stiffer texture to them than the soft feathers out here. So they don't attenuate a lot of sound. They're going to try to more bounce that sound down here into the ears rather than absorb it with soft feathers. They did some interesting experiments with owls, barn owls, they put them in a completely dark barn and let a poor little mouse run across the floor. It did not end up well for that mouse. In complete darkness, the barn owl was able to swoop down and catch that mouse as it ran across the floor. And then what they did is they gave the owl a little bit of a haircut. They trimmed off some of the feathers in part of that facial disc. And they found with that facial disc shaped altered, the owl was not able to catch the mouse. So it has a particular shape for bouncing sound down to those eyes, those ears. And that is really cool. But be nice to owls in your research studies because they're really neat animals, and you might ruin their day. So then they had to, hand feed those owls until they shed their feathers and grew them back the next time, and then they grew that disc back again and then could fly around. But those were owls in captivity, so they weren't able to be regularly released into the wild. They were being hand fed anyway, so I don't think it really impacted their life. But if an owl in the wild, if that were to happen to them, they would be an unhappy owl. So they are big sound collectors on either side of the face. You find that same pattern, interestingly, in northern harriers, which have, they're a hawk that has a very owl-like face. And northern harriers will go flying low over the ground. Here's the ground. Say there's a little bush here with a bunny rabbit sitting here on the other side of it. They can hear that bunny rabbit before they drop over the bush. They'll come around and boop, get that little bunny rabbit because they heard it before they saw it.
Could you please raise that up just a little bit so that people can see your diagram? Sorry, but Jack.
Oh yeah, this is my beautiful diagram. This was the bush. This was the bunny rabbit, and this was the flight of the harrier going nom 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 nom. Little bits of fur flying up here. So now let's take this beastie and turn its head. We're about halfway through here, and we're going to get to turning the owl's head. And that's where this comes in. So look at the size of the facial disc on this side here and the facial disc on this side here. Smaller facial disc zone on this side, on the side that's turned away from you, than you get on this side. And why is that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to carve my little owl face into this apple. All right. And let's see. Here is one facial disc. And here is our other facial disc. And here are my owl eyes. I love these little green apples. All right, here's my owl. Now from the front, I see these two as the same. If I turn it to the side, two things happen. Actually, let's turn it this way so that the owls are looking the same way as the one in the photograph. No, I want this one to be a little bit taller so that they've got more symmetrical. I don't want this apple to not be able to hunt because it's got asymmetrical eyes. Or facial discs, sorry. It's so good. This is so good. But sorry, getting distracted. So here's owl face. And now the owl looks over this way. Oh, look at that. And the facial disc that's on the side that's closer to you, you're now looking at that one straight on. So here it was actually foreshortened, so you actually saw a smaller view of it. So I turn it like this. This facial disc has actually gotten larger, and we're seeing that eye clearly in it. Notice that the facial disc on this side here it's a small oval. And also, here's the really big thing. Look at the distance between the eye and the center of the face. You see how this one here appears to have gotten closer to the center line? Yep, it sure did. So what's going on with that? Right? So the facial disc here, if I draw it better or snip it better, yum, 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 yum. We look at it from the bottom. You see how we're kind of curving in here towards the center line? So this is this line here. There we see it. We're curving up there. So this part where the beak is sticks out. It sticks out. And that means as we turn this way, part of that part that is sticking out is blocking your view of this. And this part that is angled up here, it's going to foreshorten faster. And that moves this eye visually towards the center. And if I move it more, I can completely block and occlude that eye. So what we tend to do intuitively is, because we know that these two eyes are equidistant from the middle, we will keep them in the middle. But it really helps to notice that that close eye is going to move closer to the center line as I look off in one direction. Now, let's just spend a little bit of time with the owl face. Again, look at this beautiful short-eared owl. Nice little X face. Think about how you might sort of simplify this. And from the side, right, you see that there's this part in the middle. That part in the middle really sticks out. It really sticks out. And so that means that as the owl turns to the side, that part that sticks out is going to block part of your view of that eye in the back. So the shape of the back eye is something to really pay attention to get this view. So I have the eye closer to the center than I think it should. And the shape of that back eye is going to be really distorted from this angle. The eye that's on the side closest to me is going to look very round. So I'm pointing these things out because they're counterintuitive to me. Here's the way that my brain wants to draw it. Here's what my brain wants to do. All right, I kind of get the idea that if I'm looking off this way, right, and there's my center line. So by the way, this is a very kind of useful thing to do. Yeah, if here's the ball of my head and I'm looking off this direction, this center line is now becoming this crescent moon shape off on the side. Make this one kind of looking up. So my brain wants to, if this one is here, I want to put this other eye over here. That's sort of what is intuitive to me to draw. And I also will often have then sort of show that if I've got this much facial disc on this side, let's make this one a little bit of an X face. All right. If I've got this much facial disc over here, my brain wants to put that in over here because I know that in this view, that's what I'm seeing. So this sort of facial deformation because of this little angle, for me, that's counterintuitive. And so it is weird for me to put this eye over here and put this eye over here. That spacing, it just feels wrong. But I have to just get used to that. I have to go like, okay, Jack, suck it up. So you don't like that? That's all right. That we're gonna when in doubt, we're gonna believe the owl. And if on this side I have a facial disc that is narrow, I can have on this side a big facial disc. And if this is my center line on the top of the head, I can have big over here. And if this is slightly rounded around the other side of the head, this side of the triangle over here will feel smaller, is smaller than the one on the other side. And that just, it feels, I just have to kind of remind myself that that is what we're doing. That's what this owl wants to do. And I got to believe the owl, knowing that it will be doing some of these weird things helps me be able to catch it. So let's take a look at a photograph. By the way, most of the photographs I'm using coming from birdpixel.com and seeingbirds.com. These are two amazing websites, really, really useful websites and the photographers of these sites have encouraged us to kind of use their sites as a resource. Hey everybody, look at the shape of the far eye. Whoa, that's crazy, right? That is a crazy shaped far side eye. And most of it is blocked. So, and we know why that is, right? So this one is doing this and just a little bit of that kind of poking through. We get the corner of the eye. So how would I block in a head like this? Might start with myself as a round ball. And here is the center line of my face. And it's looking down this way. And my eye is going to be, I have how far away is this eye from the center line? I'm going to have an eye over here. And then I'm going to put in a little bitty beak down here. This eye on the other side, if this is the center line of that, there's this much space here. On this side, there's much less space to get to that eye. And most of it is hidden from my view. And I just have a little bit of eye here, and over here I have a bigger eye. Coming up the center line here, what is the big V doing here? It's coming in like this on this side, kind of cruising up. It's rounding around. How far back here do I want to put this? One eye length, a little bit more, okay. And then it is coming up here under the eye. So I've got on this side this big V thing coming up, but what's it doing on the other side? If the middle of that, it actually kind of pops up. So here's the middle of it going over the top of the head like that. What is happening on this side? There is much less kind of forehead on this side. I have some facial disc sticking out here, kind of flaring out there. It's interesting. But getting this far side of the head to cooperate with me is, I think, kind of the key to getting these sorts of angles. Look at what the dark line does on the other side. It kind of comes down. And here is a little bit of eyebrow. So that's getting this side of the head. That's the part that I want to challenge myself on. That's the part that I really want to play with. Let's look at this great gray owl from the 3/4 view. And we're going to do the same thing. So here. It is, I'm going to start with a big circle of a head. The center line of it is coming down here. And maybe I'm going to make that a little bit straighter, down more like that. Its eyes are looking across the middle. And if then I'm looking at the distance from the center to an eye, and then from that center to the eye on the other side. And look at how much closer this one is. So there's eye down in here. Then I'm going to go on, up the forehead to somewhere up here is my sort of peak of this ring. How far out here do I want to go? It looks like one eye distance, two, maybe a couple of eyes. One eye distance, two eye, maybe a little bit more than that. What about on this side? I've got a little beak down here. I'm going to put in this kind of neat angry birds mark. Makes this owl look very serious. Put in the shape of its eye, again, kind of coming down straighter on the back side here and then curving up. So my little eye formulas kind of come down straighter on this side and then kind of up into here. On the eye on the far side here, it almost looks cross-eyed because the pupil is recessed back in that eye. Also, an interesting thing with owl eyes is you'll very often find that the eye that is on the shady side of the head, the pupil will be larger. In human beings, if you have unequal pupils, that's a sign of brain damage. It's a normal thing for owls. So whichever eye is getting more light, whichever eye gets more light has a smaller pupil. This one has a little triangle of dark underneath. Then there is this little kind of great gray owls have this wonderful kind of bow tie look, where there's this under their chin. There's this white little bow tie.
Hey, Jack, it's just a time check. It's 1 o'clock.
All right, so we have 30 minutes left, right?
That's correct. And we have some good questions. We can save them to the last 10 minutes if you like.
Why don't we start throwing some of those at me?
Okay, great. So this is a great question. Why do owls have yellow eyes? And probably some other predators too, but let's focus on owls.
That is a really interesting question. Some owls have yellow eyes and some owls have black eyes. So a spotted owl, a barred owl will have dark irises and dark pupils. Interesting, both of those are really kind of dark, sort of deep forest owls, and I don't know if there's any if anybody kind of has knows of a possible plausible explanation for that. I don't know why it is, but yeah, you are seeing really pale irises on you're seeing pale irises on most owl species, but I'm not sure about why that is. So one thing I do want to sort of point out here is these sort of concentric rings. As you're drawing in those, there's a tendency just to start kind of going like this and draw those in, but really kind of look at what they're doing in different places. In this area, they're going straight across. So just kind of give yourself a few little landmarks of kind of what's going on. In this area above the eye, they kind of come arcing down, right, and then arc around the eye. And out from that point, you have others that are, curving down, but look at those in terms of like what part of the head things are going kind of in what direction, and you'll see that very often they're following the contours of this shape. And to help you kind of pay attention to that, just get a little chunk, get the angles right in there, get the angles right around the eye. And then give you a few little landmarks, like as we come out here, we're going to kind of come out here. What are they doing in here? They're kind of going like this, and then you can start to kind of pull those more together. But I used to just kind of like, oh, and they've got little rings like that, and you end up with this very kind of cartoony thing of I've got an eye with kind of owl lines going out from that. So to avoid that, give yourself a few little landmarks. What is happening right here in this zone? What happens around the eye? And a few other places, and then you can connect those lines together. Now, I want to go back to this owl. Come on, focus, owl, focus. Stick with me, owl. There we go. Let's go back to this owl and take a look at how to, there it is. How do we render when we've kind of got this little owl buddy blocked in? There are all these cool patterns. How do we render that? I'm going to be rendering this with a graphite pencil. So this is a 0.7 millimeter graphite pencil. It has 2B lead in it. 2B lead is very soft lead. So when I make little marks like this, you're going to see like this. You see, I get very, very dark, almost ink-like blacks. If I have a just regular 2B pencil, it does not make blacks that are really, really rich and dark. So these do tend to smear more. So I'm going to probably start rendering more often here and then more towards this direction. If I did this part first and then started drawing out here, I'd have to put a little piece of paper under my hand to prevent me from smearing. But I also very often like to kind of work with my eyes first, because if I get those looking back to me and looking owly, I'll then kind of can circle out from there. And but if I can't get the eyes, then I'll just start another drawing, because the owl will, maybe on the next one I'll be able to get those eyes looking back at me. But once they are, that the whole picture will feel a lot more owly if I do that. So I'm going to start over here in this side of the head, and we're going to work our way over this way. So I'm going to begin over here with the eyes, and at this, there's this little kind of neat, a neat little white zone above the eyes, right? And I am making little flicks that are thicker on the outside, and then they flick towards the inside like that. And that just sort of suggests sort of the kind of the rough edge of this. And then as I get to the edge of the eye, it is really dark. So owls very often have this look as if they put on, like they're goth, and they're really going for the eyeliner. And that gives owl eyes this super intensity, because there's this black rim, and then the so there's a little black rim, and then the pale iris right next to that. Nice big dark pupil. Trying to get that to be round. Now coming down here, and I've got this, I'm making my pencil sort of have a little bit of, as I'm doing it, you can you can see the pencil strokes. that makes things feel a little bit more feathery. Getting down into this nice, dark zone right in there. And as I come around here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few of those little flicks up that just sort of suggest that the bottom of this has texture to it. There is a white zone in here, so I'm going to put a little pencil line in here to remind me to leave this white. I'm going to give myself a few little directional aids. I'm going to draw a few little lines like this. Up in here, I'm drawing a few little lines like this. You see those little white lines in the owl's head? I want to suggest the angles of some of the little, when I'm putting marks up here, I want them to sort of have squiggles that follow some of these angles. I'm coming off here nice and dark. This also probably bears mentioning that to help me get these sort of broad, dark marks that allow me to kind of quickly fill in an area, I like to have a dull chiseled tip on the end of my pencil. This way, I can come along like this and make this really kind of thick zone really quickly. As I'm coming out here, there are little feathers that are going this way. So I'm actually, my pencil is following the direction that feathers are. And so if any of these marks show up, they're going to feel like those are the edges of feathers. What is the edge of this white zone? There's a little white tab in here. And then it curves out here, down here into the beak. Now, I'm going to have fun doing this. This is, as I come in here, my pencil is following the direction of the feathers in this eye ring. Oh, there's a white zone underneath the eye here. And that then connects up in here. So you see how, because some of the white of the paper shows through, this then feels a lot more like these sort of rings of little feathers going in there. This owl's eyes are all in shadow. Which makes for kind of a flat, dull looking eye. I'll show you kind of a little owl eye trick that works really, really well. Let's say this owl's eye were in sunlight. Just going to draw another owl eye here, kind of curvy, longer on this side, coming up in here. And then there's my pupil. The sun will hit the edge of the eye and cast a shadow across part of the eye, like that, leaving you the bottom part in light and the upper part in shade. And then there is, because the eye is wet, there is a little highlight that you'll see, a reflection of the sun. And so if I put that little highlight in, oops. That can make that's a kind of a good thing for making an eye look kind of wet. You have that little highlight across it. Maybe I'll just back up to, like, let's see, this one. Oh, look at that right hand eyeball. Shadow across it. Uneven pupils. You're so cool. And then there's that little bit of the sun glinting off the outside wet part, and you can see that shadow reflecting across it. Also in that hawk owl top left, you're seeing that effect. Not here because our eyes are in shade, not here because our eyes are in shade. Some people will automatically do that on all owl eyes because it looks cool. But if you're actually drawing something that's in the shade, then it will look like it's in the shade. So big bristles in here, right? So I want to get this big, ooh, stay on the screen. Thanks, little owl friend.
Hey, Jack, you have, it's 15 minutes to the end. So just a warning, if we want to do some questions at the end, about 5 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, so give me a few more questions here, and I will start I'm going to do half an owl, a hemi-owl.
Okay, let's see. This is a good question when it came to drawing the oblique angle. So when you were drawing the head at an angle, are we starting with a fully round circle, or do you want to draw an ellipse?
For me, I guess if I look at the owl and I go like, wow, you're really ellipsy, it would be good to start with an ellipse. But usually it helps me just to get something down on the page. And then I'm going to refine that once it's there. And so if it is and so I will often sort of start with a circle, but then modify that as the drawing goes up.
Okay, thank you.
Let me point something out here
Okay.
about this owl. They've got some little nostrils in here. There's sort of a upper part of the beak. The thing I want to really point out is that in these little fluffy feathers right in here, watch what I do here with these kind of flicks in. And so I want to get these little things flicking in, and then these parts here falling in the darkness. So that gives me this sort of sense of these feathers that are kind of stiff and bristly and sticking out. And then, okay, and the next question.
There was a really good question about why barn owls in particular, why would they be white for a nocturnally hunting animal? Do you know the answer to that one?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, great question.
That's a really cool question. I love it when people ask a question that I've never really thought about. And I've never really thought about that question. Here's a little bit of texture out here.
Yeah, so these are great questions to put in your journal, folks, and research and share later on social media. we might want to hashtag wild wonder owls, hashtag wild wonder owls, and
I like that
also
idea.
hashtag Wild Wonder Foundation, both of those on your social media. And if you find the answers to these interesting questions, then we can share with each other.
Yeah, and ideally, we're coming up with lots of questions that we don't know the answer to. And the more we do that, the better we're going to get at asking questions. And then because we get the questions where we don't know the answer, it gives us permission to sort of play with investigating these things. Those are really fun. With nature journaling, in addition to drawing, as people are probably gathering, if you're kind of new to this community, what we're regularly doing is we're writing questions into our journals. We're making written notes. Part of what we do, see these little lines here giving me kind of texture across this head. Because I have some of those guidelines, I kind of know which way to kind of make these go, and it makes the whole business happen a little bit faster.
Here's an interesting observation while you're drawing, Jack. Susan observed, and I believe this was during the great horned owl, that it appeared that the ratio of the eyeballs to the width of the head was approximately 1 to 1.6 or close, which is really close to the golden mean, which is kind of cool.
Oh, I'll bet that's Susan Beckhart, our in-house mathematician. Hi, Susan. Was I right?
I would have to go back and look, but I suspect.
Okay. It's actually a different Susan. It's Susan McCollum.
Oh, fun. Hey, Susan, we have we love playing with numbers, and that is your observation about the golden ratio will be a really good thing to look for. What a fun observation. I really like that. I thought it was going to be a different Susan, who I know loves math. And then I've just met a new Susan. Hello, other Susan.
And here's another, it's a question that I think the greater answer to it will be really important. And this is cool too. Jennifer has a group of students joining in from Sandpoint, Alaska. Yay!
Hey, Jennifer and students, hello.
And they want to know, how long have you been drawing owls? And how long did it take you to become efficient? And this would be a great time to talk about pencil miles.
Yeah, that's a really good, fun question. So this this skill of kind of getting what is on your page to look like what you're seeing, it takes practice, and the more you do it, the better and better and better it gets. Nobody is born able to draw. It's not a gift that some of us have and some of us don't. It's a skill that you learn by putting in more and more pencil miles. And the more you do that, the better you're going to get at it. And it's, you know, whenever you start, that's the perfect time to start. So if you have not drawn in a really long time, then you may find when you first do this that it's confusing, and that there will be parts that go more slowly. You keep doing it. What you're doing is you're physically changing the shape of your brain and building the neurons that are going to be involved with, you know, seeing some strange picture in front of you and having that that come out on your piece of paper. I started to draw when I was in elementary school. Or I started to draw a lot more when I was in elementary school. And the because I was really interested in nature and sketching, because I was really interested in nature, it kept me kind of out in the field and sketching a lot. So I just had opportunities to draw more and more. Anything that you practice more of, that you do a lot, you do on a regular basis, you're going to get better and better at those things. And and drawing is one of those. So it's not a gift that you have to get the drawing gene or something like that. It's a skill that you can learn by just putting in those pencil miles. And as an adult, if you have not drawn a lot since you were in elementary school, then you might find at the start it's a little bit slow. But then if you just draw regularly on a regular basis for about 1 year, you're going to find that these skills very quickly start to crystallize. And it just takes about a year of drawing on a regular basis to kind of rewire your brain to be able to get a lot of the verisimilitude between what you're seeing on that little piece of paper and the object that is there in front of you. The critical thing is putting in just a little bit of time with it, a little bit of pencil miles. You do that and your brain will develop this skill. What are your thoughts about the pencil miles, Roseanne? It's a critical thought in developing ourselves as developing these skills.
Oh, I think Evia, chime in here. Evia is really the queen of pencil miles.
That's true. Evia, Evia Moore, the mad botanist, has some really useful insight. If you feel like sharing that, Evia, we'd
absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's pencil miles is part of it, but you can't. It's also about the techniques you're using and about feedback. For example, if you're drawing something over and over again, but you keep missing a detail, or there's something that you're not realizing might be going against your style, then it's really helpful to have somebody there to notice where you can grow or where you're struggling and help you sometimes reframe how you're doing those pencil miles in a way that matches better with your skill, or that helps you to realize what skill you might be missing. So I think it's a combination of pencil miles, skills, and also feedback.
That's a really good idea. There are things that you can do that make this, the skills that you can develop that make this easier to work at. But what you point out about feedback, I think, is such a powerful insight. Yes.
And we are going to be the really great thing, Evia, thank you so much. At Wild Wonder Foundation, one of the projects we'll be working on in the next 12 months is to develop ways for people to connect with mentors and people who can help them with that kind of feedback. In the meantime, the social media and other online resources are great for feedback. So don't forget that. I'm putting in the chat the link for Wild Wonder Foundation. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter so that you'll get notifications when we add these wonderful resources over the next 12 months or so to find people to help you with your pencil miles. And also, Jack, we're almost at the end of the program. We have 1 more minute. We wanted to remind you all, thank you so much for coming, that this is our first official program for the Wild Wonder Foundation. We are hosting this project to support hosting this workshop to support a project that Jack is going to be undertaking in February at an orphanage in Tanzania. And we have been putting in the chat, and I'll put it in again, the information for contributing, because this is a free workshop. We're encouraging you to show your appreciation by supporting this project. And Jack, maybe just say a word or two before we wrap up about this incredible project, because we're all really, really lucky to be here today watching this, but there are people all over the world, children who don't have an opportunity. How are you going to be bringing this opportunity to learn to these folks?
So a team of nature journalers is going to visit a Tanzanian orphanage and development center, and there we're going to spend a day working with the youth in small groups, teaching people how to draw and sketch what they see, supplying them with materials to be able to do it themselves, their own nature journals and tools to add color. We're going to be bringing them the following day to a national park, Tarangire National Park, where I understand that the children have not been able to visit, even though it's there in their as a part of their own country. That, you know, very often there are lots of barriers, transportation and costs to going to places like this. So we're going to be bringing those students with us to explore the park, providing transportation, meals, and guidance in how to do nature journaling. This is such a powerful way to connect with the natural world by your own sketches, drawings, and journaling. If and also for those children in Tanzania, wildlife art is a way that a lot of people support themselves. People will draw local nature and sell that to tourists. And so by helping people be able to draw what they see, you are going to, that's actually a career skill that they can use in other ways. And so in addition to being able to draw animals to enhance their own appreciation of their local nature and natural history, this is a skill that some of them will be able to also take into a professional career to support themselves and their families.
Great, and I put the link in the chat for those donations. The funds will be used to purchase supplies and support the travel for the students, the children, and other things. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, and hey folks, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, if you have been able to join us and you don't have the funds to make a donation to support the orphanage project, we totally understand. Lots of people are in financially difficult times right now. My request is this, that if you're not able to support us financially, let's support each other in a different way, with an act of nature stewardship or kindness in your own community. Do something beautiful in the world for others or for a wild place that you otherwise might not have done. And collectively, that makes a really big impact to have, for us to step forward and act to conserve and protect a wild place near you. That could be a little trash cleanup in a local wild area. That could be any other act of kindness or service that you otherwise might not have done, the world will be a better place. And thank you for that. All right.
All right, and just a reminder that we have recorded this and we will be getting the recording out to you in a few days. You will get that link by email. And don't forget that part 2 is next Sunday, same time, different link. You will have gotten that link and you'll get it again. And if you want to see Jack's sketches, please refer to the recording, which will be up in a few days. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, Jack.
I hope this was useful for you. I hope this was fun. And now I get to eat my apple. So take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day.